Thank you for choosing to watch this video. If you enjoy it or find it useful, please subscribe to my channel and drop the video a like. Start off by catching your hook in the vise and checking the hold. Next, catch on your tying thread. Here I'm using some of Simplify's excellent classic wax thread, 12 knot in fluid orange colour. Once you've caught the thread on, trim away the waste. For this fly, to minimise bulk in the body, I'm going to catch in the body material as I create the underbody. Here I'm using some of Flex-Floss Flex-Floss in fluorescent peach. Catch it on with a few turns of thread and then stretch the floss as you form the thread underbody. You can really pull on the floss to stretch it, and this helps keep the body as thin as possible. You want to take the body well into the bend of the hook. Once you've done this, take the thread back to the tying in point and stretch and trim away the waste tag of the floss. If you stretch it, this will create a nice clean cut. Now to tie in the underbody. Here I'm using Vivis holographic tinsel in chartreuse. This will lend a nice shade to shine through the Flex-Floss body. Catch in your tinsel and bind it down to the end of the body. You want to make sure you tie it down right to where the floss is tied in, and then take the thread back up the body. Take some time to make sure you've got a nice smooth underbody to wind the tinsel over. Then wrap your tinsel in touching turns or overlapping turns up the body. You want to avoid any gaps in the tinsel underbody to make sure you get a nice consistent colour in the final body. Once you've wrapped the tinsel up to where your thread is left hanging, catch it in. With a couple of turns and then trim away the waste. We then want to wrap our Flex-Floss body over the top in touching turns. If you give it a little bit of a stretch, it'll keep the body nice and thin, and if you want to create a taper to the body, you can ease the tension as you work your way up the body. Try and make sure you keep nice touching turns to keep a nice consistent shape and shade to the body. Once you've covered up most of the tinsel, catch in with your tying thread. Now, you want to make sure you keep your thread nice and tight as you're doing this so you don't slip and lose the tie-in point. And use plenty of locking wraps before you trim away the waste end. Again, pulling it under tension will give you a nice clean cut. The next step is to catch in the 4-ax or hotspot material, which is again is Flex-Floss Flex-Floss, this time in fluorescent hot coral. Catch it in the same way as we did with the body. A few holding wraps, then stretch it as you tie it back in to where the body ended, making sure we don't leave any gaps. Stretch and cut off the waste end. Then take your thread back to where you want the thorax to end, leaving space for the hackle, and wrap the thorax in touching turns. Keep in mind you do have to leave space for the hackle, so again catch it in a similar manner with a few locking turns. Tidy up the tie-in point and position the thread ready to catch in the hackle. Here we're using a hen hackle dyed golden olive, caught in by the tip. You can fold back the tip once you've got it tied in and and bind it down to catch it in securely, and break away the tip. Always a good idea to hold your thread under tension when you do that. Catch your hackle on your hackle pliers, fold back the feather barbules and wind your hackle. Try not to be as ham-fisted as me and pull the hackle out. All is not lost, you can still use the same hackle, just isolate a few of the barbules and trim off the ends to give you a nice tag to tie in. Unwind the thread wraps used to tie in the hackle before. And then you can catch in the hackle again. You just have to be quite a bit more careful this time and make sure you've got a few good tight thread wraps to hold it in. And then a bit more gently this time, wind the hackle. This feather's not quite wanting to play ball and sit nicely, but do your best to keep all the barbules pointing backward, but it doesn't matter too much if there's one or two that insist on going forward. We can tidy these up as we form the head of the fly. As always, if you're not happy with the way it's sitting, take it back and rewind the hackle. Two or three turns of hackle should do fine for this fly, just depends on the feather that you've got. Once you're happy, catch in the stock with a couple of turns of tight thread and then fold everything back and form a nice neat head. Once you're happy, break away the hackle stock and whip finish. A 3-turn whip finish should be plenty strong enough. Trim away your thread. Now I'll give this fly a little brush with Velcro to make sure I'm happy with the way the hackle's sitting. And then I'll finish off the fly with a touch of Solara's Bone Dry Clear. Just be careful as you're applying the resin or varnish that you don't get any in the hackle. Once you've got the head nicely coated, zap it with the UV lamp to set the resin. And you can see the way the hot spot and the thread fluoresces under the UV lamp, which is nice. And that's the fly finished. Again, thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel